Hello, this is Julie. I thought I'd show you today how to do print and cut using the Pazzles Pro software 2014 version. This is a design that I got from the Pazzles craft room, and I'll show you how I got it into Inspiration Pro 2014. First thing I did was open a new page and select 8.5 by 11. If you're doing print and cut, you need to use 8.5 by 11 page. Then I went into my image gallery where I have stored all of my Pazzles designs and went to Pets. Found the design I'd like to use, clicked on it to select, and brought it into my software. I'll resize it and move it up to the right hand corner since that's where the cutter starts cutting, not too close to the edge because I want to give room for the crop mark. Before I plan to do a print and cut, I need to make sure that I have cutting lines that go all around the design. If I click on the W at the bottom, I can see the lines without the color fill, but I notice they're all different pieces. Now I could do a shadow, but what I have been doing is just selecting all of the design, making sure it's grouped, which it is, and hold the Alt key and press D to duplicate it. You can't see that I've duplicated it, but I'm going to click on Weld to weld what I just duplicated, break that group, and get rid of the inner detail because all I want is the outside. I'm going to left click on it, then left click and right click on a color that's different. I'll do red so I can see it, and then right click and send it to the back. I'm going to zoom in really close to check out my lines, because if I see any red, then I know my cut lines are not exactly the same as the original lines, and I'm going to move them a little bit using my edit tool. It's really important before you do a print and cut that you check to make sure, zooming in real close, that your cutting lines are really where you want them to be. Sometimes it's not the fault of the cutter that your cutting lines aren't exactly where they ought to be. Click on the plus icon at the bottom and zoom in real close. And the reason I made these lines red was so that I could inspect very close to make sure that my cutting lines aren't hanging over the edge of the design that I want to cut around. And when you're zoomed in really close, you can see that kind of detail. So I don't want to see any red showing, because when I cut around my design, that would be extra white that I wouldn't want to see. Now I have a little bit of trouble with that, so I'm going to left click and right click on my shape and lock it down so that it won't move, it won't be selected, and I'm just going to get my smooth line tool and just drag it along that piece of red so that it gets straight and out of the way. And sometimes it's really worth making sure that your cutting lines are where they should be. Otherwise you end up having some messy cuts. Now I can check this with wireframe again and make sure everything's where I want it to be, and I see that there's kind of a crooked line there. You can't make it any more perfect than your lines are. Now this would be easier if I had a design that already had a shadow, and it might be easier even to shadow it, but this is just to demonstrate that you have to make sure your cutting lines are accurate for accurate cuts. Now I'm going to zoom back out, clicking on all, wireframe, and maybe looking a little bit more here to make sure everything looks the way I want it. And I think it's okay. Click on all so I can get a view of the page. Now what I want to do is go to File and add crop mark. The crop mark is off the page. I want to make sure it's on the page and that it's in the printable area of the page. To make sure of that, I go to File, Print, Preview, make sure that I can see the entire mark and the entire design. Then I close the preview. Now, before I do a print and cut on this, I notice that there is no calibration utility in this software as there is in the InVue. So I actually did this same cut. I saved this as a WPC file, went over into InVue, calibrated, and did a print and cut from InVue just to compare it to the print and cut from this software. Now when I'm ready to do the printing, I'm going to go to Print and Properties, make sure that I've selected Best Photo and the type of paper I'm using, photo glossy paper, then Print OK. So I know that my design has that my cutter and my printer are calibrated properly, at least for the InVue software, but it's not necessarily calibrated for this software, and there is no calibration utility, so that might affect the accuracy of the cutting. Well, I'm printing the design right now, and once it's printed, then I'm going to go to the cutting window, which is on the right side, Cut Project, and you'll see all the cut lines are here. What I'm going to do is just select all the lines that I don't want, delete them, so that what I have left are the red lines that I do want to cut. Once I've got those selected, then and my design is printed from the printer, I'm going to put the image, printed image, on my mat, place it up in the right hand corner of the mat, load the mat, and then send it to cut. Now notice that there is a print cut button here. You have to press that button after you get the pressure and the speed set, select the media type, and do your print cut. This will cause it to read the registration marks. So I click on cut, and then it will begin to cut around these lines. First it scans for the top edge of the page on the black mat. You have to use the black and white cutting mat. It scans for the mat at the bottom of the paper, at the top of the paper, and then it scans for the crop mark. Then it will go ahead and cut the design. Once it's finished, you can click on Return.